Seems like only yesterday when I was sitting in a large crowd at QuakeCon back in 2018 watching the original reveal for Doom Eternal with a goofy grin across my face and goosebumps up my arms. And I can't believe it's 2 years later and the whole thing has finally been released. Yep, id Software have finally released Doom Eternal, the sequel to Doom 2016, which was a reboot of one of the most important and fundamental games of all time. The wait is finally over, and in some ways it's kind of depressing. I mean, the future looks a little bleaker now, especially for first-person shooters. I say that because Doom Eternal is probably the single greatest first-person shooter ever made. It's an evolution for the genre in terms of the mechanics and also the presentation. It pushes the limits of what the player has to contend with. This is more than just a video game. Every fight and encounter in this thing is a battle for survival, combined with some of the most satisfying power fantasy elements I've ever experienced in gaming. I could stop the video right here, give my recommendation to go and buy it right now on whatever platform you can get it on, but I'm really only just getting started. And on top of all of that, you also get Doom 64 thrown in for free as well. I mean, it's a damn good time to be into shooters. There's been a lot of previews and content going around for Doom Eternal, and a lot of it has been really spoilery. So off the back of that, I will try to keep spoilers to a minimum in this video. Almost all of the footage I'll be showing is from levels they've already revealed in trailers, but if there's anything that I think might be considered a massive spoiler, I'll put up a warning like this. Not that there's anything really left to spoil at this point. id Software have kinda spoiled most of it anyway, like showing the icon of Sin in a launch trailer, ruining what would have been one of the most impressive reveals in the entire game. There's also a few features that won't be available until after launch, and because I'm reviewing this early, I obviously won't have access to them. Anyway, so Doom Eternal takes place after the ending of Doom 2016, and if you remember that game's ending, it left the Slayer in a pretty crappy position. Doom Eternal starts off just overlooking all of that, throwing you right into the action 8 months later, as the Doom Slayer's now about to head to Earth and hunt down a few Hell Priests. Earth is now the graveyard of a battle that's been and gone. Humanity tried to fight back against the demonic invasion and they lost, hard, with something like 80% of humans now extinct. So Earth is little more than a wreckage, with the remnants of civilization ensnared with the architecture and the presence of these hellish elements which are slowly taking over the entire planet. At the heart of this is a feud between what's basically what we'd perceive as angels and the Slayer, whose own past has connections with what's happening. And for reasons you'll come to learn throughout the game, the Slayer's been advised to just keep out of things and just to let the human race succumb.
It is your people's time now to give penance. Just as it was mine.
Of course, it wouldn't be a very fun game if he did that, and you don't need a crystal ball to know what he does next. There's few games out there that capture that tremendous feeling of playing as an absolute force of nature, and in a way, the third-person cinematics, which some people have even sneered at, only really helps to heighten that. The glare that this dude gives some people during some of the cinematics is so hardcore that it rattles the coffins of their ancestors. What follows is a campaign where the Slayer basically ruins the plans of everyone and everything for the good of mankind though, pissing off everyone stupid enough to get in his way. I mean, even those who don't get in his way end up having a really bad day. On top of that though, it just feels like a game made for gamers, if that makes sense.
Prepare for turbulence.
It's full of little references to other id Software titles. The cheat modes are all collectible floppy disks you activate during the mission select screen, and one of them is even called QuakeCon mode, where you'll hear a crowd cheering you on during gameplay. id Software recognizes their fans and they really know their target demographic. Despite being one game in a huge series, it still feels lovingly crafted and unique. The passion from the people who worked on this thing just shines through constantly. Right off the bat too, I'm just so happy that this game looks and runs as well as it does. This is a technical and an artistic masterpiece. The sheer amount of detail they've packed into this engine is just incredible. Every single environment is teeming with incidental details, most of which you won't even stop to notice unless you really want to take it all in. Like, go off and look into the distance and you'll see these horrific, nightmarish creatures trudging across the terrain, or the corpses of gigantic mech suits, still stuck in the position mirroring the moment of their destruction. We've gotten to that point now, I think, where in-game graphics look as good as pre-rendered CGI cinematics, and you just kind of become numb to how good the whole thing looks. And like I said too, it runs really well. Like, I don't think my frame rate stuttered once, and that's really saying something, considering how chaotic things can get at times. What's even weirder too is how the download is only 37 gigabytes compared to the last game, which I think was 80 or so gigabytes. The animations too are just superb, from all of the different glory kills which change depending on the direction you're facing a demon, through to their facial animations too. You'll even see demons react when you're glory killing them. They'll have this look of utter shock on their face, and it's just hilarious. Some of these glory kills are so inventive too. There's so many horrific and creative ways to end a demon's life. I don't think there's ever been another game that lets you kill an enemy by snapping their arm in half and then impaling their head with their own arm bone. Yeah, and I have to mention Mick Gordon's music too. I mean, this dude's just gone above and beyond here, creating a really unique soundtrack. I know that Joe Rogan recently described it as annoying music, but that couldn't be further from the truth. From tracks that get your blood pumping with high-octane, bassy beats through to moody, atmospheric tracks featuring distorted throat singing. It's an absolute smorgasbord of themes and motifs. There's been a lot of negativity from gamers in response to a bit of the footage that they've shown for Doom Eternal, with people lamenting that it's got too many cinematics and that it's too heavy on the story. It's kind of a weird thing though, because some of the earlier levels have a fair few cinematics, all of which can be skipped by the way, but then for like the next 5 or 6 hours you get barely anything. Any kind of exposition is usually delivered in-game in real time, so you can keep going around doing what you want to do without being hindered by a third-person cinematic that takes you out of the moment. Honestly, it wouldn't shock me though if id Software did some last-minute culling of these cinematics to appease to that very minor but still very vocal group of people who act like cinematics in a Doom game are worse than the swine flu. There's dozens of lore documents for the player to find and read, which also fills in huge chunks of the game's backstory, and it won't really take anything away from the gameplay if you choose to not read them. But then again, late game, as you'd expect, there's a fair few cinematics, and what happens in some of these is huge. There's stuff in here that is 100% unfiltered fan service. And during one scene in particular, I had my hand over my mouth in a combination of complete shock and pure awesomeness. It was like this mix of incredulity and amazement. Yes, there's going to be cinematics in this game that are going to make fan theories canon, and they are amazing to witness. Not to mention, you'll also learn about the history of the Night Sentinels. There's a lot of details into why they're letting everything happen to Earth, and also the origin of some of the more tougher demons and antagonists.
This is humanity's chance to repent, to give service to us.
And even if you don't care about this stuff, which if you don't, I have to ask why you're even bothering playing the game in the first place, you can still skip them. Hold down that R button on the PC and you're back to killing things. So I don't want to hear none of you assholes complaining about cinematics in your Doom game, alright? Just skip the damn things and move on, bitch. The combat is where it's at though, and I wasn't lying when I said that this really feels like an evolution for the genre. There's few FPS games out there where every single enemy in the game has the capacity to kill you in a matter of hits. Even the most basic zombie types in the game, slow as they might be, can kill you if you let them. Despite the fact all of these demons are supposedly terrified of the Slayer though, they don't really waste any time in trying to fuck you up. There's the return of the series' iconic enemies like the Imps, the Pinky Demons, the Revenants, Cacodemon, Mancubus, the Baron of Hell, and eventually the Archvile. There's a weaker variant of the Cyber Demons called the Tyrants, and at one point during one of the Slayergate challenges, you'll even take on 2 of these assholes at once. Good times. New demons include the Carcass, which is a robotic looking thing that can put out defensive shields, almost like a support demon that protects the others. However, you are the goddamn Doom Slayer and you're not going to let a bunch of demons get in your way and ruin the fun of you removing their limbs from their torsos. A big part of the combat in Doom Eternal is that you're almost entirely in control of your own resources, and it's up to you to keep an eye on these. Now, in its simplest form, it works like this. Glory kills drop health, chainsaw kills drop ammo, and then using the flame belch on an enemy and then shooting and killing them drops armor. Instead of throwing out a grenade, the Slayer's now got the grenade launcher, and you'll also unlock an alternate fire mode which launches out an ice bomb. This becomes really important when upgraded because when upgraded, frozen demons return health points when you kill them. So if you're really smart, you can freeze someone, set them on fire, then kill them for both health and armor points. I don't know how someone can be frozen and on fire at the same time, but hey, physics. Then finally you've got the Blood Punch, which is a charged up punch you build up from glory kills. Doesn't sound like much, but again when upgraded, it also returns health points from killed enemies. And let me tell you, Sonny Jim, you're going to want to have as many healing options as you can, because that health bar drops off mighty quick. Demons are then broken up into 3 main categories. You've got fodder, which are your weaker demons like the imps, the zombies, and the soldiers. These guys are a minor nuisance, but you'll mostly use them for resources. With the rest though is where strategy really comes into play. Now heavy demons are your Arachnotron, Cacodemon, Mancubus, and so forth. These are the guys you're going to want to focus on first and foremost. One of the new ones and a source of constant frustration are the Whiplash. These cyborg, snake-looking bitches that slither all over the place, kinda like my ex-girlfriend, and attack you with chain whips, also like my ex-girlfriend. Pain Elementals also make a return as well, but they act a little bit different to the original Doom. Instead of spawning in a bunch of lost souls all the time, now they simply throw lost souls at you instead. Like everything else though, after a bit of encouragement from one of your weapons, they all suffer the same fate. Archviles function like their old Doom counterparts, soaking up a heap of damage and constantly spawning in demons from a nearby anime convention. Barons of Hell are now a lot faster and they have these giant blades on their arms, and like I said, the Tyrants are kind of like weaker versions of Cyber Demons. Still nothing to sneer at though, and once they start locking onto you with their homing missiles, you'll give them the credence they deserve. Lastly, there's the 2 all-new additions with the Doom Hunter and the Marauder. Now, the Doom Hunter's like a big robotic-looking thing that kind of feels like an enemy out of Quake 2. This guy's got a powerful shield and a jetpack you need to disable before you can damage him, but he's small time. What you've really got to worry about though are the Marauders, that demon who killed Markiplier in his gameplay video literally 200 times. Look, in Markiplier's defense though, these guys are super tough to kill. And it's even worse because you'll often have to fight them along with a group of the other demons as well. This guy right here is the Ultra Nightmare Run-Ender. But the problem I found with this guy is that he doesn't always follow his own rules. The game says that the Marauder only uses his shotgun if you're at close range, and he'll throw his axe if you're far away, but that difference between what the game determines as shotgun range or axe throwing range isn't really all that clear. It's just a bit of an unbalanced stain on a really solid enemy lineup otherwise. This really is a ball-bustingly hard game too. I mean, some of the later levels in the campaign are fucking insane. Unlike Doom 2016 though, once you choose a difficulty mode, you're not locked into it, so you can go up or down as you wish. I've seen some people compare the combat to Metroid Prime, and one of the guys I was chatting to at Bethesda described it as a violent game of chess. Both I think are accurate comparisons, and if you just go in with one gun and try to use it on every single enemy, then complain that the combat isn't fun or the enemies are too spongy, well, that's on you. I also remember people complaining about Doom 2016, how they said there weren't enough enemies. Well, you're going to be eating those words pretty soon, along with a bunch of Revenant rockets to the face. To combat all of this is a really robust weapon lineup, but unlike Doom 2016, where it's often said that you could get by with using nothing but the super shotgun, every single weapon in the game serves a purpose and has a functional use, not to mention a weakness in some situations. For starters, you've got the shotgun, which replaces the pistol from the last game, which is just now gone entirely. The shotgun's basic fire mode ain't all that good. It's only really useful for putting weaker demons into a staggered state so you can glory kill them for health points. But it's the alternate fire modes that are really handy. The first one launches out a sticky bomb, which can clear out small clusters of weaker demons, but it's the one fire mode that can instantly stagger cacodemons, who swallow the bomb, leaving them open for a glory kill. The other mod is a rapid fire mode, handy for dealing quickly with the tougher demons. And combine this thing with the rune that slows down time when you're firing in the air, and you've basically unlocked bullet time. The heavy cannon is a decent all-around gun, and this has a precision bolt mode and the return of the micro missiles from Doom 2016. Micro missiles are good for dealing out quick damage, and the precision bolt mode is really important for breaking a demon's weapon. Shoot off an Arachnotron's head turret or a Mancubus's arm cannon. It's a critical mechanic that becomes really important in some of the more full-on combat sequences, and I think people are really going to underestimate how crucial this is to use. If you get into combat and you see an Arachnotron, first thing you're going to do is take out that goddamn head turret. The plasma rifle makes a triumphant return, and aside from just doing some pretty good DPS, it also has the even more useful function of being able to overcharge enemy shields, causing them to explode. The mods for this bad boy are the Heat Blast and the Microwave Beam. If you've ever stuck a casserole into the microwave for 15 minutes and seen what happens, then you'll know how this thing works. This guy knows what I'm talking about. Up next is the rocket launcher, which is an FPS staple and something you can't go without, like leaving the house without a pair of shoes. This thing's got the remote detonation mod, but more importantly the lock-on mod, which launches out 3 rockets that can lock onto one demon. With this thing you can pretty much finish off Cacodemons, Arachnotrons, and Barons of Hell in a few hits. It's really handy. Next up though is the real shit, and this is the Ballista replacing the Gauss gun from Doom 2016. It basically functions the same. It's in essence a railgun with good accuracy that's also really handy at breaking a demon's weapon. One of the mods charges up a super powerful shot that lodges into demons before exploding. The other one charges up a super powerful shot that fires out this huge blade, eviscerating anything in its path. The wind-up time might seem a bit high, but when you see the damage that this thing does, like a coked-up football player bull rushing through a porcelain store, you'll understand. After that is another returning champion, the chain gun. It's kind of funny to think how this gun was one of the workhorse weapons in the original Doom, but now it's been buffed to the point where it's one of the best guns in the entire game. Again, aside from just doing great damage, you've got 2 really helpful mods for this thing. The first one brings up a shield, protecting you from incoming damage to the front. Not behind though, so keep an eye on those unprotected Slayer butt cheeks. The other fire mod turns the chain gun into a goddamn turret, firing so fast that the barrels overheat. I just love this fire mode so much, and if you've ever wanted to see a gun that has the ability to create instant erections, well, here it is. And when you master this weapon, it prevents it from overheating. Big oof. Finally, we've got the one gun to rule them all, the Super Shotgun. I don't think it's a secret anymore how you acquire this thing. You remotely control a Revenant who hand delivers it to you. Then after that, it's all downhill. Like Doom 2016, the Super Shotgun still remains one of the best weapons in the game. Not only does it destroy most enemies in a few hits, but it also has the meat hook. A simple but awesome addition that allows you to pull yourself in towards a locked-on enemy. It's kind of like Scorpion's Spear from Mortal Kombat, but in reverse. When you master the Super Shotgun by unlocking all of its upgrades with weapon points and then finishing a weapon challenge, the leash also sets enemies on fire. So along with reeling you in for extra damage and an easy kill, you also get the bonus of armor points back too. It's a win-win. Now we're getting into spoiler territory, so if you don't want to hear about these last few guns, well, maybe skip to this timecode here. It wouldn't be a Doom game without the BFG, and true to its namesake, this is a huge fucking gun that takes up half the goddamn screen, launching out a slow-moving ball of pure energy that just schwacks everything that gets near it. You can clear out entire rooms with this thing in a single blast, and about the only demons it can't kill are the tougher ones, like the Marauder and the Doom Hunter, which would just make those fights way too easy. If you've completed all of the Slayer gates throughout the campaign and gotten all 6 keys, no easy feat, you'll also unlock the Unmaker, a weapon fans of Doom 64 are going to recognise. It's just like a faster firing but weaker version of the BFG, which also all but confirms the connection between Doom Eternal and Doom 64 as well. Finally, we've got the Crucible, a weapon they first showed off in one of the earliest gameplay reveals. Now, this is a weapon made from Argent Energy, and it just kind of looks like a bloody giant laser sword. Kind of works like the chainsaw from Doom 2016, in that it can one-shot almost every single demon, with a preset animation showing them getting sliced in half. It uses Argent Energy from pickups you find throughout the levels. Each demon takes 1 charge to kill, and you've got a total of 3 charges all up. An elegant weapon for a more civilized age. And like I said before, each weapon has its own strengths and weaknesses. I mean, a rocket launcher is good against a Mancubus, for instance, but little use against the Whiplash, who'll just outright dodge it. Whereas a plasma rifle might be good against revenants or imps, it's not as useful against a Baron of Hell, who soaks up those plasma rifle rounds like it's low carbohydrate craft beer. Up against an armoured Pinky Demon or a Spectre, well, throw out an Ice Bomb and then shoot him in the ass. Enjoy the view too while you're back there, King. Swapping between weapons on the fly is pretty much essential, as each weapon works for better or worse against a demon type. All I can say too is just make sure you stay hydrated and take breaks every 30 or 40 minutes, because this shit is intense, son. I feel like they need some kind of support group that players can join after they stop playing this to help them assimilate back into everyday life. Yeah, the whole thing's pretty hardcore. By the end of the game, I think I had what could only be described as a 1,000-yard stare. Level design is also pretty good too, and to mix things up, the flow of the levels changes quite a bit. Some of them are a bit more straightforward without too much delineation off the beaten path, but then others are a lot more open-ended and allow for exploration and secret hunting. Just think of the Foundry from Doom 2016 and it's along those lines. There's just a whole heap of secret stuff to find in this game too, and hunting it all down is as much fun as it is making a demon eat their own arm. Instead of having to do rune challenges, now you just find runes in the environment and then they're good to go once equipped. In lieu of this, you've got these things called random encounters where a bunch of demons spawn in, usually right on top of you, and then you've got to kill them all in a time limit. These are always pretty damn strict, like your mother's caloric intake during summer, but they're really satisfying when you finally beat them. You've also got Sentinel Crystals, Praetor Suit points, Weapon Mod points, and those Slayer Gates to beat as well. Once you've unlocked all of this side stuff, it then accrues back at the Doom Fortress, the Slayer's Fortress of Solitude, hovering in the Earth's orbit. You can chill out in the Slayer pad, you can check out your collected figurines and weapons, or blast some music from Quake or Commander Keen. Use Sentinel batteries to unlock extra weapon mods, suit points, or custom skins for the player. Oh yeah, and if you're not playing the whole game with the classic Marine skin, well, you're doing it wrong. And guess what? You're dead to me.
A false idol. My eyes have been opened. Let me help you to see, Slayer.
They've even added in a fast travel mode at the end of a mission so you can go back and collect all of the stuff you've missed. And they're nice enough to give you that notification when you're about to get to that point in the campaign of no return. So you can make sure you've upgraded and unlocked all of the stuff you need before tackling the last few missions. Now, the only problem with Doom Eternal is that its enjoyment factor comes from being able to play around with 8 weapons, alternate fire modes, and a bunch of equipment. Once you're in that cycle of swapping back and forth between all of these guns and moving from demon to demon, you're really in FPS nirvana. But it can take a while to get to that point. The first 3 or so hours of the game, you haven't got all of this stuff yet, and it can make these earlier levels feel a bit boring. It also makes these earlier levels a lot more challenging too, because you probably don't have too many health, armor, or ammo upgrades either. So it just kind of feels like you're always on the back foot, which you are. Now, I know it wouldn't have been all that much fun if you had every gun and every ability from the get-go, but there is a massive difference in how the game feels and plays in that first 3 to 4 hour mark. Having said that though, the second half of this game features some of the most amazing level design I've ever seen in an FPS game. The Phobos level, which is one of the first ones they ever showed off, where you first get the BFG, is just non-stop action from start to finish. This to me is like the surface tension chapter in Half-Life, which I've always considered to be one of the best levels in a shooter. Almost every aspect of the game, from the weapons, the enemies, and the gameplay mechanics, all meet in the center, and you're just there along for the ride. Everything you've learnt so far is being put to use and the game holds nothing back. You're moving from area to area, just taking on wave after wave of demons with Mick Gordon's music in the background, and it is just gaming bliss. It's as close to a perfect shooting experience as you're ever gonna get. I guess my point is that you might need to initially be patient when playing this and give the game time to work its magic. Trust me, it'll be worth it. It also helps that the controls in Doom Eternal are as good as they are. I mean, I do wish the movement speed was a bit faster, but with the advent of the dash move combined with fast ledge grappling and double jumping still gives a great sense of mobility. It all just comes back to the whole combat loop and how you have to really have eyes in the back of your Praetor helmet at all times, and constantly be thinking one move ahead. To make it even more hectic, there's these master levels you can play through too, which is the same levels as before, but now the enemy counts have been dialed up to 11. These are so much fun to blast through if you've ever wanted to fight 2 tyrants, mancubus, revenants, and pain elementals all at once. It's like a demonic gangbang. I'm going to be really interested to see people doing ultra nightmare runs of this game because there's just going to be so many potential and unpredictable run enders. It's going to be crazy watching someone overcome all of this stuff for the game's 15 or so hour long campaign. Yeah, 15 hours, that's about how long it took me to get through the whole thing, then another 5 or so hours spent going back and getting all the side stuff that I missed. Now look, there are some minor things that do annoy me though, like in Doom 2016 when you finish a glory kill, you're unable to move for like half a second, but enemies can attack you in that time. Now this might not sound like much, but if you're playing on Ultra Violence or Nightmare, that half a second can literally mean life or death, and you have to use the glory kills a lot more this time to recover health points. I also think some of the levels are way too dependent on platforming. A lot of the early levels in particular are just rife with this stuff and it's not really good platforming either. You just jump to one wall or ledge, then often you have to kind of scan your entire surroundings to find the next one, like they're not always designed in a way that flows seamlessly. Every now and then you're forced to move through this purple crap that slows your movement speed down and prevents you from jumping or dashing. And these sections are about as fun as scratching your asshole with a cactus plant. Thankfully though, this stuff is pretty few and far between, but why they thought to include this stuff is beyond me. I'm still a bit disappointed too that there's still no proper monster infighting. Like you'll see demons infighting all the time, but it's scripted and they don't actually kill each other from it. Being able to purposefully get a cacodemon against a mancubus would have been really funny to watch. Or seeing a tyrant stomp over a bunch of imps or zombies as it comes towards you would have been great too. They've developed this hierarchy between all the demon types, it's a bit of a shame to not use it. I do think the live system is a bit odd too, so you're always collecting 1-ups throughout the entire game. And if you ever lose all of your health points, you respawn right away with full health and armor and can keep on fighting. If you lose all of these lives though, you then restart a checkpoint, but once you restart that checkpoint, you don't get your lives back. There's no such thing as a perfect game though, so even Doom Eternal's gonna have a few little niggling annoyances here and there. But honestly, in terms of a perfect game, this comes pretty damn close.
I'm serious, that guy doesn't scare me. I'd like to see him try.
They've chosen to solely focus on the single player campaign instead of a multiplayer mode this time around, and that focus and polish really shows. About the only thing I haven't dabbled in yet is the battle mode, which is the all new 2 versus 1 multiplayer mode. One person plays as the Slayer and the other 2 as demons. I just haven't had enough time to invest in this yet and learn its ins and outs, so maybe that's something for a separate video. I suppose we have to talk about Doom 64, which you get for free along with Doom Eternal, running in the almighty Kex engine, which has powered other Night Dive remasters like Turok 2 and Bloodfresh Supply. Developed by Night Dive Studios, this is just a really good port of the Nintendo 64 version to PC. At least, I think it's a good port, though I've been wrong in the past. Doom 64's had a bit of a weird revival in popularity over the last couple of years, which is funny because before that you never really even heard anyone talk about it. It plays pretty much the same as Doom 2, using the same weapons and enemies, just that now every single weapon and enemy sprite has been completely changed, in some instances to the point that they don't even look like the same weapons or enemies anymore. Some demons have been cut out too, probably because of the limitations of the console, but the enemy count is usually about on par with what we got on the PC, so it's still pretty action-packed. Instead of the game being broken down into 3 selectable episodes like Doom 1, it's all played back to back like Doom 2, with a couple dozen or so levels all up. However, in this version, you're also getting a brand new episode called The Lost Levels. These are really good, but if you're hoping for some kind of tie-in to Doom Eternal, well, don't get your hopes up. What makes Doom 64 so unique though is that it's a lot more horror focused. All of Bobby Prince's metal tracks have been replaced by a horrifying nightmarish music by composer Aubrey Hodges. Some of the music in this game is barely even identifiable, it's more akin to metallic, demonic ambience. Murmurs, chanting, bizarre distorted breathing and other things that sound like they emanate from a robotic cow giving birth. It's really in a league of its own and it uses much more atmospheric lighting, creating some very striking environments that seem far more haunting and eerie. The other thing it has is the Unmaker weapon, which is unique to Doom 64 and now Doom Eternal. The only thing that pisses me off about this game is that the Lost Souls are pretty much broken. They attack about twice as fast as the original Doom, and the Pain Elementals spawn them in way faster. Otherwise though, this does a good job of capturing what makes Doom so good, and it puts its own spin on the formula, so it's definitely worth playing once you finish Doom Eternal, or even as a prologue if you're patient enough. I'm not going to say it's a perfect port because Lord knows I got in enough shit the last time I said that about a Night Dive remaster. But on the surface level, this thing plays pretty well. So unless you've spent your entire childhood glued to your Nintendo 64 with the original game, I'd say the differences, if any, are fleeting and won't detract from the overall enjoyment. So let's all smoke a didgeridoo and chill out. Overall, anyone who's any kind of fan of the shooting genre owes it to themselves to pick up a copy of Doom Eternal. The highest praise I can give it is that it makes Doom 2016 seem tame in comparison. In fact, I don't think I can go back to playing that after this, knowing how far things have progressed. Contrarians will say that it's not Doom because of the colourful item pickups, the cinematics, or some other nonsense that their echo chamber on their Discord server frequently tells them. But these are the kind of people whose parents don't love them, and that have an averse allergy to fun, along with sunlight.
The ion catapult is designed to use only approved UAC ammunition.
id Software have just really smashed this one out of the park. The very same company responsible for popularizing the single-player first-person shooter have returned yet again to make their presence known with one of the tightest, most refined campaigns I've ever experienced. So the only question I have left to ask is, why aren't you playing it yet?